Get off my lawn.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Magic Dads podcast here on the Old Cranky Man YouTube channel. My name is Blake Chafa. I'm here with Stefan.
Hi, that's me.
And we've known each other for quite a while. We met back in 2017, late 2017.
Uh-huh.
You remember what we were doing when we met?
I believe we were jamming some sweet popper.
We were playing Popper, yeah. I think 2017 is where Popper really started to kind of incline.
Mm-hmm.
And our local LGS wanted to run an event. And, my favorite deck, which is probably going to come up more than once in today's podcast, is Tron.
In every format that it's
in. Every format that I can play Tron in, I want to play Tron. So I had never played Popper before, so I was really intrigued. And, 2017 was... It's not exactly the Wild West of Popper, but it was much different than it is now.
It was much more open, I think. There was a lot of more room for maneuvering. That's a weird way to put it, but
sure, no.
There was no best or worst decks. We did have some more crunchy powerhouses in the form of Daze being legal and Gush being legal.
Gush. Mm-hmm.
But we hadn't developed as many ways to abuse them. I think the inside out combo had just sort of reared its head. I think Saffron Olive did an expose on that and sort of blew that apart. And I remember losing to that pretty frequently.
Yep. So we met playing Popper. We're both dads. We both have many children.
Oh my God.
And so that was another thing that we bonded over.
Oh yeah.
And I think kind of through the pandemic, we really kind of, since everybody was locked inside, we both really kind of relied on one another as a sort of social outlet, even though we weren't able to go outside. And primarily right now we play Canadian Highlander.
Yeah.
That's what we're playing on a weekly basis. And we have built our community up around us in the interest of playing a lot of Canadian Highlander.
As much as we can.
And the format is fantastic. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. That's kind of what we do. And what we're going to talk about now is, well, first, we have recently paired with Old Cranky Man Collectibles, and we rebranded all of our social media, and we are going to provide our services, our faces, our commentary for their tournament circuit. And the first event that we are doing, which is actually not the first event that we did, I forgot to press the save button on the Twitch stream from our Canadian Highlander tournament. Anyways, still sad about that.
It was very good.
The first tournament that we are doing commentary for OCM is Team Trios, which is Legacy, Modern, Pioneer.
Yeah, interesting choice there. Instead of standard Pioneer, Modern, they went with the Pioneer Modern Legacy.
Well, when I asked about that, he laughed and said standard's dead. Which I understand what he means. Struggling to fire those kinds of tournaments. I think people that want to play standard, that you can just play standard on Arena.
Yeah.
It's a lot cheaper.
To give a modicum of perspective or context there, OCM primarily deals in, or not primarily, but a lot of what their bread and butter is finding higher end cards, and are sort of one of the few places where you can reliably go to find something that would be played in Legacy or in a vintage format. It's where you and I sort of... It's the first stop for us.
It was the delta between Boomer Magic and Dads.
Yeah, very much, and also sort of appropriate that they approached us as two old cranky men.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So, for the purposes of this Team Trios, we're going to be mostly highlighting Modern.
Yeah.
Now, as I
Absolutely.
mentioned before, I love Tron, and I have played quite a bit of Modern in the past, not so much recently. But you have not played much.
No. I think I've borrowed a couple decks on a couple occasions, but my interest in my history with Modern is largely from a viewer perspective.
Sure.
I really enjoyed watching different Magic content, especially when Modern was. I'm just going to say pre-Horizons Modern. I think pre-Horizons Modern was probably the most interesting Modern was, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I think that the format now is just a fully different format
Yeah.
than pre-Horizons Modern. We've had such a sea change in power level and speed in the format. That
Efficiency, I think. Efficiency is
yeah.
a big thing. Yeah.
in pretty much every context, and you have to release your notion of what the old Modern was as a format. And
That's hard. That's hard for me to do.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
wanna
very
let
much.
go of it. I love, Deathrite Shaman and Splinter Twin, and you used to be able to cast a Siege Rhino with a straight face.
I do. You know, I have a affinity for Siege Rhino. It's a card I will probably never cut from my Canadian Highlander lists that can cast.
So
Siege.
talking about Modern, let's talk a little bit about the current Modern metagame. What are we gonna expect to see?
So obviously the strongest decks in the format right now, or at least the ones that we're seeing the most play, are the Is It Murktide lists, which are sort of like the king of mid range. We've got the Indomitable Creativity decks, notably a powerful deck in both Pioneer and Modern.
Yep.
Duke recently taking down the
Shouldn't have sold
Predator.
those foils so soon.
Yeah. Yes. I think you saw the power of it before other people did too. It was very interesting.
I just wanted to turn a treasure token into a torrential Gearhulk.
After that, we've got the Hammer Time deck, which is Colossal Hammer, and then Rhinos, which is the Cascade Rhinos deck.
Yep.
The Scam
with
Rakdos.
the new addition of what is that creature? The Simic creature.
Oh, the Shardless Agent.
Shardless Agent, yeah.
Yeah,
New
another Modern Horizons. Yeah, Modern Horizons include from Legacy, kind of dropped in to say hello and bring Rhinos.
Rakdos Scam.
Yeah, that's a sort of powered by the efficiency of those evoke creatures.
Yawgmoth.
Okay, yeah.
Yep, Yawgmoth.
The
And
Yawgmoth
then
deck.
the 5-color, like 4 or 5 color Omnath elementals.
Yeah.
I think there's like a whole slew of things in there. It used to be, the Yorion, the 4-color Yorion decks. When
now-
Yorion got banned, it kind of broke off into multiple different. There's like lots of different ways that you can build that deck. But the things that are consistent through are like 3 fairy and the elementals, but most of them have Omnath. I think the Omnath Elementals that has like Risen Reef in it is what won that LMS tournament over the weekend, and featuring Elish Norn, Mother of Machines, as a Panharmonicon. How do you say that card?
Panharmonicon.
Panharmonicon. Yeah. So I was following Andre Mengucci's Twitter through the whole thing, and he went 13 rounds without seeing a repeat deck. So that means that there's at least 13 different archetypes that have decent enough representation.
We are missing what I would consider to be one of the most powerful decks that have gotten something recently, and that's Amulet Titan.
Oh, yeah. How could I forget?
Yeah, Titan is, I think, one of those decks that keeps on positioning itself very well in the format because decks sort of evolve around it, and then it breaks through and does something incredible.
Having played that deck, not a ton, but a little bit, that is incredibly hard to play. And I think the reason why it hasn't been banned out of existence yet is just because the bar for entry is that you need to have played like 200 games with it to not go to time every round or to not screw up the combo when you're trying to do it.
Yeah, it's what I would call the Quark Clan Ironworks reason that it hasn't been
Yes.
banned yet, where the deck is just incredibly powerful, but it takes so much knowledge and playtime invested for you to get good and start making those wins. And with the new edition of the land, it becomes the fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth copies
Oh yeah.
of the Amulet of Figure, the Mycosynth Gardens.
Yep.
I
The
think
new
actually
card from
three of them.
Phyrexia all will be one.
Yeah, I think that the deck is about to have a moment where people have to take a look at it and wonder if anything really needs to go.
I wish that I followed the modern metagame a little bit more closely because I'm curious what they cut to add that. They're already playing not a greedy mana base, but it's a very selective mana base.
Sure.
Like there's not a whole lot of room to wiggle around. You need X amount of this land so that you can get your 6 mana to cast your Titan, and then you need this land to do this and this land to do this. It's very specific. Like I have a feeling that tuning that deck is just a miserable nightmare. Like what do I cut? So
I think
they were playing Urza's Sagas because Urza's Saga is basically additional copies of
we're in 4 of those.
basically additional copies. So they didn't cut Saga. I wonder what they cut for the Mycosynth Gardens.
It looks like mostly they cut basic lands.
Oh, who needs basics?
They're running 4 basic lands in the deck.
That's gonna segue nicely into the next topic.
Yeah, it really well. I think they lean hard on Dryad of the Elysian Grove, being able to fix their mana, and then explore. And if you've ever wondered if that sorcery that lets you play 3 additional lands should ever
Summer
be
Bloom.
unbanned.
That was
Summer
when
Bloom.
I played. Summer Bloom was still legal when I played Amulet Titan a few times. You could just kill them on turn 1.
It's an unfun, unfair card in an already unfun, unfair deck.
So, next topic. One card currently legal in Modern that you would ban.
So I think my answer is going to be it's going to be Solitude, but the real answer is all 5 of the evoke creatures.
Sure.
I don't think that they've led to any fun or interesting game play patterns. They've shifted the meta in such a way that it's very difficult even for Force of Negation to do any amount of work these days because all of the
they can't counter them.
Yeah.
Because they're free, they're a creature, and they're also a spell.
Yeah. It's really man, especially the ones that have flash. And Solitude is just the most egregious of those. It's not fun. The real answer is if there was going to be a card banned, I think it would probably be Expressive Iteration, just knowing it's banned in both Legacy and Pioneer.
It has met the ban hammer in more formats than it would care to admit. Ragavan also banned in
Legacy. Yeah.
And not banned in Modern.
Yeah.
The Merc, okay, so the Murktide decks, the blue-red, whatever decks, they're like the 49% decks. So boomer Modern players like me will remember Junt. With Tarmogoyf and Thoughtseize, and I know Junt still exists, but it's not like
that
Junt
none
used
of the
to be.
cards have been banned.
It was much less efficient. So it's a 49% deck. Really the power of that deck is that you can capitalize on your opponent's misfortunes. If your opponent is not experienced, you can capitalize on that. If your opponent has to mulligan a bunch, you can capitalize on that. If your opponent draws a string of bad cards, you can capitalize on that. That's what Murktide decks are really, really good at. And that's why people play them, is because they have diverse answers to threats. Counterspell, that can deal with an instant, a sorcery, an enchantment, a planeswalker. It doesn't matter what it is. If the spell can be countered, then a counterspell counters it. Lightning Bolt kills just about anything. Unholy Heat kills just about anything. And then, you've got your card selection and expressive iteration and consider, and then also you've got decent threats in Dragon's Rage Channeler and Murktide Regent and Ragavan. It's just a pile of very, very good cards. But the caveat is that when your opponents don't have misfortunes, when your opponents are running hot, when they're not mulliganing, when they're drawing really, really well, your deck is okay at best.
Yeah. Like we talked about.
Generally, you can only deal with 1 or 2 things a turn, and if your opponent gets a tempo swing on you, you are probably not going to be able to get back ahead.
And there are decks that, like we talked about with the primetime decks, they can get a play or plays where on turn 3 they are just winning the game.
Yeah.
And without having the correct disruption in hand, the deck just sits there and waits for your opponent to take 40, 50 game actions and then just win.
Yeah. Card that I would ban out of Modern is Blood Moon. Let it go.
Not gonna happen.
I just couldn't think of a better answer to the question, honestly.
Yeah.
I think that Modern is actually in a pretty good place right now. If you can go 13 rounds into a tournament and not play against the same deck twice, I think your format is more than healthy.
Oh, 100%.
Are the elementals pushed? Yeah, but they were supposed to be.
Yeah.
The idea there is like you're mirroring the power that exists in Legacy, but you're also creating something that's entirely different. And I think that the design space in the free Voke elementals is actually really, really cool. And I like them a lot. So one card you would unban in Modern is the next topic. We're going to talk about unbanning a card. What are you unbanning?
Okay, I have a fake answer, a joke answer, and a real answer.
You have 3 answers?
I have a joke answer and a real answer. That's it.
Okay.
So my joke answer is Golgari Grave Troll because I adore that card. It's so specific. It's good in exactly one deck, and I want that deck to be very good again. It's like Dredge is playable.
Dredge is
in Modern.
sweet.
It's a very fun deck. I love Dredge in general. If I'll play like with Tron, I will play a Dredge card in any format that you allow me to play it.
Yeah. I could attest to that. The dude loves him some Dredge.
The real answer is I think Faithless Looting could absolutely be unbanned. Totally fine.
Yeah.
I think that the cards that caused that card to get banned, specifically Hogak and Bridge from Below, were the true.
Hogak really is.
Hogak, yeah.
Faithless Looting died for Hogak's sins. Let's be honest.
There was never a doubt in my mind that Hogak was the real issue, and I remember being at the GT or the GP in Minneapolis the summer after. After Hogak came out in Modern Horizons 1, and Hogak was literally on every poster in the street for that tournament. And I was like, this card's on every poster, and it's going to get banned in 2 months. And sure enough, it was banned right away.
But in the same vein as the free Voke elementals, I think that Hogak is a really sweet design space.
Oh,
I love it when they put text on a card that says you can't spend mana to cast this spell.
Oh, it's so good.
And that's so weird. I can't not love that.
There's that one card that you can't cast you can only cast from your graveyard. It's the Knight from Cold Snap.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. That kind of restriction is exactly what kind of excites me for a card where I'm like, oh, this is a weird design space.
Yeah.
Or there's that a Primeval Might, I think it's an 8/0 with trample out of Time Spiral.
Yes.
Like what a weird card.
What a weird time to play Magic. Like we didn't evaluate cards the same way back then that we do now. We didn't realize how far ahead R&D actually was. They were very far ahead of us, and they knew a lot of things that we wouldn't find out for years.
Yeah.
And being in the driver's seat when all of that happened and watching it all unfold has been very sweet.
Yeah, I think they definitely played it stranger instead of more powerful when it came to card design. So instead of just putting more words on a card, they put restrictions on cards, or they made cards strain in that they were playable in very specific design spaces. And I don't think it's a better or worse thing that we're in a different time. It was just different. You know. All right. So
Sure.
what would you unban out of Modern then?
What would I unban out of Modern?
Yeah.
I would unban Splinter Twin. And that's my only answer. Splinter Twin did nothing wrong. Now, I will say that putting the card Splinter Twin in a deck that has Fury and Ragavan both in it, we are probably going to run into some problems, but I'm willing to take the chance. I'm willing to take the chance that that's an issue and unban Splinter Twin. I think that the gameplay that the Splinter Twin deck produces is really, really unique. And I got to see a little bit of that in Pro Tour Phyrexia All Will Be One, because I think that the Pioneer Is It creativity deck plays a lot like Splinter Twin did, where, you know, they just use their resources to try to interact with you, to prevent themselves from dying, push themselves into a position where they can win uncontested, and then they just win on a single turn. I love that gameplay pattern, where you just feel like you're in complete control of the game all the time, and there's nothing that your opponent can and will ever be able to do about it. It's just like the epitome of a control deck. And then, the number of times that I've slapped a Splinter Twin on a Vendilion click just so that I could do it every turn, or a Snapcaster Mage just so that I could do it every turn.
You're just getting that incremental value from it in a space where you don't need to win with it if you're already winning with it.
Right.
Yeah, like I think it's a totally reasonable card. I do think that there are a lot of weaknesses now to the deck that didn't exist back then. And again, going back to the free vote creatures, Solitude is a real problem. Like all of the weaknesses of the deck being the same. That is casting an enchantment onto a creature, and that creature has to be a very specific type of creature for you to win the game.
Yeah.
And that type of creature doesn't have the words hexproof on it, indestructible on it. Doesn't have any kind of protection or regeneration. Right. It's just
it lives through a lightning bolt, though.
Yeah. Have you heard? Have you heard of Unholy Heat?
It does not live through an Unholy Heat, which is another thing. Yeah. So we could totally. What you're saying is we could totally unban Splinter Twin right now. Would not be a problem.
Like Dumb and Dumber, there's a chance.
So you're saying there's a chance?
You're saying there's a chance. I do think it's interesting that you and I both picked red cards.
Red's my favorite color.
Yeah, I think these are definitely weirdo cards. Like Faithless Looting is a very weirdo card. Splinter Twin is a very weirdo card.
Yeah.
That in the correct decks sort of allow you to set up very well. And
Red gets all the coolest. Red gets all the coolest cards.
It tends to. I think it gets the strangest cards still. It feels like if R&D doesn't know where a card should go, they just stick it into red. You know what I mean? Like the all one goes. They were just like, okay, well, what does this go into? We'll just make it red. Possibility Storm. That's it's a random card. It just goes into red. It's totally fine.
The color of passion.
Passion and confusion.
So speaking of favorite cards, that's the next topic. What is your favorite Magic card of all time?
Interesting that you should ask that, because it is in fact Faithless Looting.
I know you have a Faithless Looting playmat.
I do. I have a Faithless Looting playmat. I adore Faithless Looting as a card because it's such an unassuming design, because you look at it and it resembles a red version of every blue cantrip. The blue cantrips, Ponder, Preordain, even Brainstorm, which is incredibly powerful. But I would say Ponder and Preordain are the closest analogous examples that I would
Isn't Careful Study the closest? Careful Study is the blue Faithless Looting.
Yeah, it is. But it doesn't have flashback. But I would say of the ones that actually get play regularly, like
Yes. Okay, I know what you mean.
This is
It's
the
a it's a
version that Red
tentpole
gets.
card.
Yeah, but the difference is that you don't play Careful Study in a dredge deck. You play Faithless Looting in a dredge deck. Faithless Looting, because of its flashback ability, gives it so much additional card advantage in terms of cards in your graveyard.
Right. It's like where's the downside?
Yeah, like putting cards in your graveyard is, in the decks that want this card, equal to drawing them, if not better than drawing them.
You're just keeping them in your hand.
Yeah,
They didn't go away actually ever. My favorite card of all time is Dragonstorm. I love Dragonstorm. The storm mechanic is very, very cool. It's one of my favorite mechanics of all time. Also, I love dragons. And casting a Dragonstorm and searching your deck for something big and scary, just kind of, the little kid me. That's all that I ever wanted to do was play this big thing that cost 1 million mana because it's very, very impressive and cool 1 mana 1/1. I have a 9/9 that flies.
Yeah.
Very
Shivan Dragon.
Very, very much more powerful than what anybody else at the time was doing. And Dragonstorm just lets you cheat on a whole bunch of mana. If you got a storm count of 3 or 4, you can go get 15, 20 mana worth of dragons and put them into play all at once. And then they have all these triggers that happen. I love Dragonstorm, and that Kev Walker art is so cool.
Underrated artist. Yeah.
Kev Walker's amazing.
Yeah.
And, that's what it is, though. It goes back to being at the kitchen table and just wanting to have the biggest creature.
Yeah, it was that was sort of always my thought too, of having bigger creatures than my brother when we were playing Magic when we were kids.
It seems like that's how you win, right? When your concept of the world is the bigger guy wins the fight.
Yeah.
That translates into Magic really, really well. Well, my creature's bigger than yours, so I must win now, right?
Yeah. And it has flying, and I can put red mana into it to make it bigger each turn. You're just gonna how do you beat the Shivan Dragon? He's a 6/6. Shivan Dragon a 5/5 or a 6/6?
It's a 6/6.
It is a 6/6.
It's a 6/6 for 6.
Remote my Magic Boomer credentials right now. I haven't cast a Shivan Dragon in a very long time.
I don't cast Shivan Dragons. I put them into play with Dragonstorm.
Why would I cast
Next and final topic for today's podcast is, who is your favorite Magic character of all time?
That's an interesting question, and sort of one that I went back and forth on. But the current incarnation of Chandra Nalaar, has gotten so cool, and she's had such a cool arc. And little spoiler for the current storyline with March of the Machine, with Nissa has sort of gone back and forth on whether or not they're in a relationship with one another.
Yeah,
and Nissa being completed, and then basically healed by way of Malira is it was really a cool moment for the story where they paid off a long time coming storyline.
Chandra's awesome, right?
Yeah.
She goes back. She was one of the original 5. She goes all the way back, and the slow burn, to put it eloquently, the slow burn of watching that character really turn into what she is. Chandra, she's passionate, she's emotional, she's just kind of the embodiment of red mana, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful character.
Love her. And seeing her relationship with her parents too, Pia and Kira.
There's so much story there.
Yeah. And I hope that we go back to Kaladesh at some point.
Give me more energy cards. I wanna spin the Aetherworks Marble.
Yeah.
So my favorite character has always been Teferi. For a long time he was just kind of he wasn't really right up front, right? Like he didn't even get a card for a very long time. But he was always as a child he was always up to no good and getting on everybody's nerves. And then when he grew up and he had his family, then he's just plagued by this tragedy, right? That was his own doing. He's trying to save his family and the people that he loved, and in doing so he lost them forever.
Did he though?
No. No, and seeing that comeback, oh God, I'm not gonna lie, I literally cried. I had actual tears because it was incredible.
Zalfir's return was
the full story just came all the way back around, and like that just kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier when we were talking about time spiral. R&D is so far ahead.
Yeah,
like they're 10 years out right now. They know what Magic is going to be like and look like in 10 years.
Yeah,
that it's amazing to me.
The FFL it has to be both mechanical and storyline, right?
Yeah.
There has to be this knowledge. And Teferi, all right, so here's something funny, is that Teferi is the first non-red card that we've talked about that we're fans of. And it is a blue-white card and like the antithesis of red, which is super funny considering his character.
I love Teferi.
Really looking forward to this tournament at the end of this month. I think we're going to see some great games. As much as we've talked about or do like about Modern, I think that Modern is an incredibly entertaining format to watch. Still.
Yeah, it is.
I think we're going to see some really good matches of Magic and a higher level than anybody is sort of expecting when there is fewer outlets for competitive Magic in terms of GPs and Pro Tours being more limited these days. This kind of local tournament and this kind of draw that we get from tournament TOs, you see the high level Magic come out here because this is the outlet for it.
There's a ton of build up for it and everybody wants it, and we are very excited to bring that to everybody. But until then, we'll see you next time on Magic Dads here on the OCM MTG YouTube channel.
We're proud of you.
Bye.